All right. Past Lives, the new A24 movie directed by Celine Song in her at least feature debut.
Yeah.
Starring Greta Lee and TOU. Yeah. Got a synopsis, Jimmy?
Yeah, I do. This is our non-spoiler review again, so we'll warn you before we dive into spoilers. But Nora and Hae-sung, two deeply connected childhood friends, are rest apart after Nora's family emigrates from South Korea. Decades later, they are reunited for one fateful week as they confront destiny, love, and the choices that make a life. Again, this is Past Lives, our non-spoiler review. Again, Best Picture nominee seems like it's going to be a lock coming forward. Maybe Best Picture itself could be in play, although there are some other heavy hitters going up this year, and it came out quite a while ago now, January 21st.
Well,
at Sundance.
Yeah,
And then
came out wide in June. That's probably the biggest thing going against it in terms of award season is, Academy lots of times favors movies released later. Well, Everything Everywhere released in like April, so.
and it just picked up momentum as it went on. So.
Yeah, so we'll see. And I still see people talk about this movie, so I don't think it's really died down too much. But yeah, with that being said, it's a very good movie.
I think so. I think it's
Jimmy.
worth a lot of the talk that critics and praise that critics have been giving it. I don't think it has like as much of the originality and quirkiness flair that Everything Everywhere all at once has, and just a lot
Hard
of
to
that.
compare them.
Yeah, well, I mean, but in terms of like keeping that momentum going into award season,
Yeah.
But who cares about awards? Let's just talk about this movie, and I think this movie really does a great job. There's like it's very just like. It is almost like a slice of it. I don't want to say slice of life movie, but it seems like just a slice of existence movie where even
three slices of existence.
But it's like this. It almost seems like this story is a story that it relates to a lot of people all around the world, and not necessarily this specific situation, but like little, just like it feels very human and very real. And I found myself engrossed in the emotions and characters of this movie, even though it's not fast paced. It's not very exciting.
No.
But it is, with that being said, it's perfectly paced. And I just felt completely immersed into the story, even though it's kind of jumping around through time, introducing newer, different characters or, people throughout their lives. And, I just thought there was like a spiritual quality to it that I think it was very well done. It was very well written. It was very well directed. It was beautifully shot, and really well edited. I think every facet of it, I'm like, there's not a better version of this movie that I think exists. Everything seems to really come back to tie into the central themes of the movie very well and very intentionally, from the cinematography to the editing, to the writing, to the performances. It all seems so cohesive that I think that in of itself is something to really commend, especially for Celine Song.
Yeah.
As her directorial debut for a feature, just remarkably well done. And it just was a very, very compelling movie to watch. And I think it does a lot of things very well.
Speaking of Celine Song, it feels like she's been doing this for a long time. It's a very mature movie to be like your first big like thing, because I feel like, and maybe this is because she's not like a young film student during her first movie or whatever, but it does. I feel like so many first features are oftentimes about, or maybe more immature takes on love, because that's all that like people have really experienced or whatever. And this feels like she's lived it, and it feels, I don't know, it feels like someone's like later romantic feature film instead of someone's first, which I think
complicated.
It is very complicated. It's a very mature version of a movie you've like seen a bunch, I think.
Or it takes a lot of the tropes and just deconstructs them.
Yeah, exactly.
into what real life is in a way that keeps it compelling and keeps it just very heart-wrenching. It's just a heart-wrenching movie. I think the most impressive facet of this movie is you have two central characters, but then you have a tertiary character who's also central kind of in the second half of the movie. And I think what Celine Song does really well is I honestly related to each one of them deeply.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I wanted exactly to happen. Like I feel like in my head I was like, this is kind of the best thing for how this should end up in my heart. And those, kind of trying to reconcile those emotions and how, all those complicated feelings and elicit that from the audience in your debut film is incredible.
Yeah, it's really empathetic towards our two leads and then kind of the major side character. I feel like it spends a lot of time making you understand each of their like choices and feelings. But yeah, it spends a lot of time narratively and like emotionally exploring like these different paths that like you can take in life and everything, and how, little choices can kind of build up into, big decisions and everything. And everything in your past, is very important to where you are now and whatnot. And it's just a lot to explore in like an hour 45 or whatever it is. And,
yeah.
But I think it does it really well.
It doesn't overstay the welcome.
No.
There's no fat on this to be trimmed, really. I don't think at all.
No.
It never dragged for a moment. I just was, like I said, completely immersed, completely engrossed in what was happening.
And it does, aside from like the story and stuff, it does it visually and audibly too. It's quite a feast in both of those senses, I think. Like it's shot very well. There's some great, just beautiful shots of like, especially New York in this. There's one shot in particular that I don't even know if it's that notable. It stood out to me. I'll talk about in spoilers, but,
sure.
And then audibly, I mentioned this to you. I felt like, not that this is like it, like I know a lot of movies do this, but it really, like the audio design, even outside of the music, really stood out to me. It felt like it very much like it purposely chose what like cityscape sounds to play at what point. It felt very musical outside of the music too. There were a lot of more quiet moments where it was just like the sounds of the city, and that was like all that was there. You didn't even really have any characters talking. It was very ethereal and enveloping, I would say. And the score, I think, evolves as it goes. I don't know how to describe the genre of music this score is, because I feel like it kind of evolves too. But it was great the whole time.
Yeah, so. And the great thing about this film too is that it's completely accessible. It's not like artsy fartsy.
No.
But it is very, like, it does make you like feel complicated feelings, and it's beautiful, and it just has all these things going for it while still just like being a straightforward movie. It even has a lot of, like I said, spiritual elements to it and existential questions to it that get you to think and to relate to these characters in a way that, again, it seems so natural. It wasn't like I'm trying to like figure out what is happening or what it's not like twists and turns. It's just like, here's a story of something that seems like a very real situation and a very unfortunate. I mean, like, is not the right word for it. It's hard to describe. Like, you just like, it's just complicated.
Yeah.
Life is complicated. Life is complicated. Love and relationships are complicated. And also very simple at the same time. And it takes those things and it kind of captures like, this inexplicable kind of force of relationships between people.
Yeah.
That, it's hard to quantify or describe that kind of the connection between people, but it's so palpable, and it takes that and just really analyzes that and makes you kind of, you wrestle with that and try to figure out, okay, all the different facets to connection, the good and the bad of relationships and everything in between. That it's just and again, like we afterwards were talking about, is this a movie we'd watch again? I think I would watch this again.
I would watch it again.
Because I think you could even get more in a second viewing. Like I said, it's not 3 hours long.
No.
So that's like even an accessibility thing there. It's an hour 45. It doesn't drag.
Mm-mm.
It's not hoity-toity or anything. It's just a straightforward but beautifully shot, beautifully written, acted, very real human story that I think is it's very, very well done is all I can really say about it. And I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I think the one thing we haven't really mentioned, non-spoilers yet, is the performances that you briefly mentioned, and they're great. There's so much nuance to everyone in this, and it's like everyone. There is a more stereotypical version of these performances somewhere that like they could easily tap into. Like I said, in the version of this movie that you've seen before. But everyone is very understated in a lot of ways, with like a few like emotional scenes here and there. But it felt realistic in that way, and how you're not constantly having an emotional outburst or whatever in these situations. You're just trying to you're like these characters themselves are trying to analyze each other and like the other people's kind of understated emotions and everything, and it's great.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it is not. It feels very real. Like the characters in this feel like real people. It does not feel like you're watching a movie. It feels like you are completely engrossed in the story.
Yeah,
and I just lost my thought that I was going to say. Shoot. Hopefully I think of it again. But I had a point I was going to make, and it's just completely gone from my head.
That's fair, Jimmy.
But what else you want to bring up non-spoiler wise for this one, Holden?
The cinematographer's name is Xavier Kirchner, and he worked on Steve McQueen's Small Axe series for Amazon Prime, which is like a series of like 5 movies he made, and they were pretty good. Those were very well shot, so it kind of makes sense. So
yeah,
but I don't think there's much else I have non-spoiler wise for this.
Yeah, I hope I remember what I was going to say, because I just completely lost it. I don't even remotely know where to begin thinking of it. So hopefully it comes back to me during spoilers. Otherwise, I guess it wasn't that important. But yeah, so Holden, you want to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10? What are you going to give it?
Yeah, I guess I'll probably give it a 10. I don't really have any reason not to. I guess there's not really anything I didn't like in this movie. So very good movie.
Wow, what was the last movie you gave a 10 to? Before this,
John Wick, probably.
Did you give John Wick a 10?
I gave John Wick a 10.
Okay.
I feel like I don't think I gave Spider-Verse a 10.
Okay. Wow, that's
so
incredible praise.
Very very different movies. It's my 2 10s of the year so far.
Oh, I think I remember what I was gonna say. Okay, this movie, I went into it like, okay, I think I heard this is like a sad movie, but it's not. It's not like a depressing movie.
No.
It's not like a weighty movie, and it's not like, Old Yeller, where it's like the dog dies and it's like just cry your eyes out. But it's just kind of like a understated melancholy. That's just, I don't even know. It's just like there's a real, I don't know how to describe it. It's just
sad in the way that a lot of just like real things can be sad in like similar situations where it's like kind of missed opportunities and stuff, but I don't know.
Like it's like the pang of what if, you know, like so a little remorse is what you feel, but it's not like any of these characters are in like awful situations. No. It's just like maybe we would have been happier in an alternate universe, but we don't really know. And does it, what do we do with that information? Yeah. And it's kind of wrestling with that. And I think that's a very, very human emotion to feel. Mm-hmm. And this movie kind of reminds me in a very, very dissimilar to La La Land, but like the kind of if of a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking that while watching this movie too, especially the ending of that movie.
Like the what could have been.
Yeah.
But because of certain things, it didn't land the way it was, but yet we are still thankful to have each other in our lives, and we have this connection that's hard to describe. And I really like how they pull in some of the Korean spirituality into this and describe it using that culture. And I was like, that's a really good way of kind of saying this and this existential thing. So I thought it was really good. Who's this for? I would say, people who, if you like dramas, if you're like, oh, I want to see the best picture nominee, I like Shawshank Redemption and Minari and, any sort of like, just,
Shawshank.
I think it's a very accessible movie. Again, it's not. It doesn't have the style and flair of and like excitement of whatever. But it is very, very real, and I think it's for mature audiences. So anybody who wants to watch a really human story, I would say to watch it. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think I'm with you.
Sweet. All right, let's dive into spoilers, which will be coming right after this. There we go.
All right, spoilers for Past Lives.
You have been warned. These are spoilers, discussion, reactions. If you haven't listened to our non-spoiler stuff, this is going to make sense to you because we probably touched a lot of what we wanted to say in the non-spoiler section. So hopefully you've listened to that part in addition to this part. So spoiler honestly, discussion.
Non-spoilers for this is probably going to be longer, I feel.
Yeah, which is, it is, thinking to think about movies that like sometimes the spoiler section is way longer. Mm-hmm. And like I said, like a lot of the stuff to kind of break down and dissect is kind of, you could do without spoilers.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things I do want to talk about is the spirituality of the film and the inyan. Mm-hmm. They called it, like the idea I think they said Buddhist idea of like all these past lives that you have, hence the name of the movie. They do say past lives a bunch. Well, yeah, that is a little distracting. I almost wish they called the movie something else because it is a little distracting that it is. I think it is 3 times. Mm-hmm. But just how the inyan is like you've kind of brushed up against each other. It's this force, this intangible force that kind of pushes you closer to this other person you're kind of destined to be with, or have some sort of major role in your life. And I think that was a really beautiful way of describing this connection that these 2 characters had. Our 2 lead characters, Ha-sung and Nora, have in this movie from their childhood and throughout their life. It's like even at the end when she's like standing and they're waiting for the Uber or Lyft or whatever it was or taxi, like even the wind is like blowing her skirt towards his direction, which I don't know if it was like an intentional decision, but like even the wind is like bringing them together here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, are there any specific moments from this that you want to kind of touch upon as things you liked or shots? Obviously the shot where they, when they find out that she's immigrating to the United States, them going their separate paths.
Yeah, that was good.
Clearly a hard visual too, like, a sad thing to watch.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. Well, so they're obviously friends as kids. That part of the movie is pretty short. And then 12 years later, when they're young adults, they meet each other on Facebook again and start, FaceTiming and
Skyping.
Skype. Okay, my bad.
Reminds me of us when we Skyped each other for the podcast.
I got a PTSD hearing that Skype
boom,
call.
Boom, 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 boom. That's one thing I wanted to mention. The tech on this point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Very, very accurate to the time periods every time. Well done. Mm-hmm. The interfaces, the devices themselves, the Samsung Galaxy S3 or whatever he had. I was like, I had that phone in that 2012 or whatever, 2011 when it was supposed to come out. I was like, I recognize that lock screen when he like pulled up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we had the same phone.
But yeah, so they meet each other and they start talking, and it's like clearly kind of, it's taking away at least from Nora's kind of life because she's kind of obsessed with talking to him, clearly like has some feelings for him, but she wants to push forward with her career. So she kind of cuts ties with him for a bit. to kind of focus on her work and everything. And then that's when she meets her future husband at the artist retreat thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, their like unofficial breakup thing was kind of hard.
It
was clearly hard for them too, which I think they expressed very well. But it was a tough scene to watch because it was like it's like a tough situation because they're not dating, but they both have feelings for each other and they talk a lot. And he even kind of mentions well, we're not dating.
Yeah.
But
it was like a passive aggressive defensive jab. It's like, oh, well, we weren't dating or anything. It's like clearly they were, you know, like
in a way,
but you just hadn't completely defined it and you weren't together and this long distance thing. And and I love how they kept doing like they would apologize and they're like, well, there's nothing to be sorry for.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like they're relating to each other, like, I don't know. It was very real. And like I said, I felt for all the characters involved.
Yeah.
And I think one of just the really like blink and you miss it moments of melancholy is just when Ha-sung is in the hotel in New York and he's sitting at that little table eating like the complimentary muffin from the breakfast while it's just downpouring outside. And like clearly like what is like the most like just the saddest like visual, just like all alone at this tiny little table right up against the wall facing the window outside where it's downpouring, where he paid, thousands of dollars to come visit New York City in like some sort of weird, desperate attempt for reconnection with obviously like deep in his subconscious, he's like hoping that she'll like run away with him, but not expecting that and like trying to talk himself like that's not realistic. That's not how this is going to play out. And just like that moment, I thought just captured all of that into a visual. And it's just such a minute thing that I think that was like, that is really, really well done visual storytelling. And I think there's just little moments like that scattered throughout, which I think is why a second viewing would really enhance this. Even the beginning where I said it was like a slice of existence.
Yeah.
Because you have the people watching.
Yeah, that's
a great
intro.
And that's why it's like, when you are walking, like every person has like this, their version of not this, specific story, but everybody has their complicated human story going on, whatever that is. And this just happens to be this one. And we get to actually see it now as an audience. But I thought that was a really effective way to do that because it's like when you are going and people watching, there's their version of their own story and the human version of that, and then to bring in the spirituality of it and like, okay, reincarnation. There's thousands of these versions of this and this culture and
multiverse.
Kind of the multiverse. But how and just goes to the again a testament to that intangible quality of the connection between humans and how powerful that is, even though it seems so, it seems so inevitable and but yet it has that such force behind it. And I think that this movie captured that essence really, really well.
Yeah. But then you have, we talked about him in the hotel, but that's when Hae-sung comes to visit in New York. And this is kind of where the movie becomes what we had mentioned earlier about not being the typical version of this movie, right?
It's not a Hallmark movie.
It's not a Hallmark movie. Like, yeah, they had a very positive connection in the past. Clearly, they're connected in some way. But he comes to visit. I don't think he even really necessarily knows what he wants to get out of it.
No, I don't think so either.
Like he's just there to see her essentially. And, Nora's, I think maybe in the beginning, like willfully blind about a lot of the situation, but then, kind of it becomes more complicated. And then clearly the husband's like nervous about the situation.
I thought the husband was like the most relatable character, perhaps, because it's like, dude, this guy's situation just absolutely blows because he can't be like, he like voices all these things. It's like, well, this guy literally traveled across the world to see you, and you're childhood friends. So I can't say don't see him. No. But also, you're telling me that you think he's attractive. You like basically were dating long distance.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And you're like out alone with him for like the whole day. And we don't have a romantic story ourselves. Like, this is like the Hallmark movies. Like, I'm the evil white Jewish guy blocking your romance.
Yeah, in other movies, he would be the husband or boyfriend that, you know, is either not the best or just clearly not the better option between the two. And then you
wrote a book called Boner. That was funny.
That was funny.
Unexpected funny moment in the movie.
But yeah, it's all just much more nuanced than that, and it's pretty great for that.
You know what would be a similar movie to this in terms of just kind of the feeling of it? Is Marriage Story. I would say Marriage Story also is a very human feeling movie.
Yeah, it's been a while. I don't remember.
And where it's like movie. But it's like, especially with maybe how they end, where it's like you know, just kind of like, we have this really complicated relationship with each other, the two main characters, but then kind of being grateful for it regardless of that.
Yeah, because they come to recognize in their conversation at the bar, they're like, yeah, there's still some lingering stuff there, but we're very happy with where we are, and like, they're grateful for their time spent together.
Yeah.
It's like like I mentioned earlier, like everything in their lives has built them to where they are now. Every decision, you know, positive or negative, but they're happy with where they're at. Yeah. And so they're accepting of these, you know, past feelings and whatnot, and all the baggage it comes with.
Yeah. The what if that kills you.
Yeah.
And you can see the what if just eating away at Ha-sung.
Yeah.
In this, it just like, you know,
but he's like he's like a good guy. So
and he respects that, like, she's married. Like,
he's not gonna like try anything.
And to a lesser extent, you have Nora feeling that, but she's like, well, but I'm complacent in my life right now, and it wouldn't be fair to leave Arthur. And it's just like, again, just how it took in an hour and 45 minutes, took all these complicated things and just boiled them down in such a seamless, straightforward story is remarkable.
Yeah,
it really is. It comes across as very simple, but very well done. All I can say about it. And it's one that the more you talk about and the more you look at it, the more I appreciate it. So yeah, very, very good.
There's the great bit at the end with her crying with her husband.
Yes, which was very poetic. That like at the beginning, Ha-sung is the one she's always crying with, and she's like, I don't really cry anymore. Nobody cares if you cry. And then she goes and she's crying with Arthur,
with her husband, who she has a very good connection with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great. Trying to think what else. I mean, going back a bit, the whole conversation with Arthur and Nora in the bed and everything is just like it's very real, and I feel for both of them. That was probably my favorite conversation in the movie, honestly, because it was just like, it was kind of hard to watch. It was kind of cringy, but at the same time, like, yeah, totally understand.
Well, it's like what the mature couple would do. And again, it's like, what a great job to get us to relate to the Arthur character and also Nora's character. And, you know, what do you want to get out of this meeting with him? And, you know, and he's like, I'm excited to see him, but clearly he's just like not having a good time when they're there. And just the isolation that he feels, especially, I love how the part where he's like, you sleep talking Korean. Yeah. He's like, I don't really know. I can't know all of you unless I knew this. Korean, and he doesn't have that culture, that upbringing. he's like, you know, part of you is always a stranger to me. And like, that's something that this other guy can relate to and I can never relate to, and kind of that insecurity of that. But then at the same time, you're going to have Ha-sung, who grew up in Korea. She's like, he's Korean, not Korean American.
Yeah.
Is what Nora says. And he won't be able to relate to kind of her more Americanized ways now. But, you know, focusing on the negative or the insecurities, I think was really effective. Then the other standout scene is obviously the bar scene at the end, where, again, the visual storytelling, there are parts where Arthur is just cut out of the frame.
Yeah, just not.
It's like he's not even there, and then it will come back to him. And I think the visual impact of that and that communication of you literally are getting the kind of seeing the acting and feeling the feelings of Nora and Ha-sung during the conversation, but visually and subconsciously you're kind of viewing it almost as Arthur, because you're getting like he gets cut out and put back in. So they're tying in those emotions into that conversation simultaneously through the visual storytelling.
Yep.
Which again, using the medium to enhance the narrative is something I always love about filmmaking and movies. And it's like, you know, it's why it shouldn't be a book. You know, it's like this movie works so well as a movie. And I think I like to see Best Picture nominees, and I like just movies in general that, you know, use the medium to enhance the storytelling, as opposed to this could have been a book, could have been a play, could have been a, you know, video game or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But this was one that worked really well as a movie.
It really did.
So awesome, sweet. Anything you want to add to this, Holden? Any other moments or scenes?
The one shot I alluded to in non-spoilers is like a nothing shot, but it was like the ferry, like when it's like on the ferry and looking back at the city. It's like the way it was like composed, it was like really cluttered and like colorful, but very natural in a way I haven't like really seen before. It was a weird random shot when they're like going out to the Statue of Liberty. That like it really didn't have much to do with the story or anything, but it was like that's a bizarre shot, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
great job of capturing on the flutters and hurts and pangs of remorse and what ifs of that love can offer.
Yeah.
Sweet. We'll see what happens or come award season, but in the meantime, it was a great movie. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments as to what you thought, what maybe you'd rate it, you know, what stood out to you, any of that sort of information.